Welcome back to the channel. Today we have a 2014 Subaru Forester, and it's doing its squatted truck impression. I don't like that look on squatted trucks, and I definitely don't like it on a little Forester wagon. It's a sagging wagon. It rides just as bad as it looks. I think I know what's wrong with it, so let's get it up in the air, well, as high as we can get it on a jack in our driveway, check it out and see what's wrong with it, and maybe even get it fixed. We'll go ahead and put it up on our poor man's lift, and if you didn't think it looked too bad before, well, now that it's up at its normal height, you can see how bad it really is. Well, that looks about right. Ship it. Driving it around on a jack will get the ride height right, but it's going to ride really rough. So we're going to take this wheel off, see if we can figure out what's wrong in there, and go ahead and fix it the right way. Well, I believe we found the problem. No surprises here. Well, I think that spring should probably not be down on the control arm there. So we got a broken spring, no big deal. That's where it broke at, and then just spun all the way down. I don't know how they were driving. This thing drives horrible. So we're just going to get a set of quick struts for it and fix her right up. Through the magic of video, you guys didn't have to wait long for us to get our new struts. I had to wait a little bit longer. And yes, that is the dullest, rustiest razor blade I could find. It actually wasn't dull enough when I started, so I did scrape around on the concrete a little bit, but it would just barely cut the tape. Ooh, shiny. Let's toss them in there. So it's a pretty easy job. Just jack it up, make sure the suspension's unloaded. We got some jack stands underneath the subframe. There's a nut and a bolt down at the bottom here, and there's a couple nuts at the top. The hardest part is we got to pull the trim panels to get to those nuts at the top. So let's get our bolt off the bottom here because it's easy to get to, so we'll start there. It's nice that they put a nut and a bolt down here, make our jobs a little easier. And as long as that bolt doesn't seize up inside of our bushing, we should be good. And since it's spun, we should be good. Pop it out of there. And we'll head inside. Pick up all the owner's personal items. Get the spare tire cover out of here. And this little cover on the side. And whatever stuff is in here, so we can see the fasteners. A couple little plastic push pins, pop those out of there. Pull this piece out. And we'll pull this rear sill plate out so we don't have to work around it. A couple clips stayed where they didn't belong, so we pop those out. We'll put them back in our sill plate so it's ready to snap back in there when we're putting it all back together. And now we can get the nuts on the top of our strut. Pop those out of there. And we can pry our strut out. Pile. One of these things is not like the other. You don't even have to know what you're looking at to know that the one on the left is broken. So we'll put the new shiny one in. The studs up on the top lined up. Just put it in there. I don't have any friends, so this little board is going to be my friend. Prop it up there so I can run inside and put the nuts on there so the thing doesn't fall back out of there. Tighten them down to manufacturer specs. And one of these days I'll get a retaining clip for that impact so that I don't have to keep picking up the socket. And we need to take our friend out of here. We need to pull the suspension down a little bit to get that strut to drop inside the control arm. Gotta go down quite a bit. Apparently I haven't eaten enough. Not quite enough winter weight I've collected there. So try prying it in there. And that idea failed. So we'll move to the end of the pry bar and see if we can pry it down enough. But Well, my arms aren't long enough, so I'm gonna have to figure something else out. My solution is to pull the bolt out that holds the knuckle to the lower control arm. Then we can just push down on that control arm. Just enough to slide that strut in there. Slide it back into place. Got it to drop down in there. Now we're just trying to get the hole to line up, or at least get it close. Tap it all the way up there with our prying hammer. And when we got it close, we'll stick our ladyfoot pry bar in there and move it around so we can start the bolt from the other side. If you want one of those pry bars, they're available in my Amazon store. If you're going to Google it, I suggest you Google ladyfoot pry bar, not just ladyfoot, or your search results are going to be quite a bit different. Now we're going to let our jack down, and the safety experts are going to lose their mind when they figure out that the weight of the car was actually on the jack. Never mind that I had the jack stands under there. But we're going to move the jack underneath the suspension and jack it back up to compress it so we can get our knuckle back in our control arm here. And it wants to move around, so we're just going to pry it back into place. There we go. And our knuckle drops down in there. Kinda. Pry it out where it belongs. Put our ladyfoot pry bar in there. And put our bolt in. And we're ready to throw our tire back on here. Tighten it down. We'll come back and torque it down to manufacturer specs later. And we'll head over to the other side and pull this tire off. We'll unbolt our strut from our lower control arm. Got lucky on the last one. See if this one's frozen in there. I really need to stop being cheap and buy that retaining clip. And since our spring isn't broken on this side, we're going to have to take this control arm off of our knuckle in order to get that strut out of there. And our bolts are not frozen in there. This job doesn't look like it's going to be too difficult. Go ahead and load our suspension just to get everything apart, get the bolts out anyway. And we can let it back down. Get all of our bolts out. Push down on that control arm and get the strut out of it. Close enough. Go ahead and put our little trim panel back on the side over here. Clips underneath the spare tire cover. And we'll pull this side off. Probably would have been a little easier to get these side pieces off had we taken the centerpiece out, but with all the junk there, I didn't want to move everything around, so we'll just struggle a little bit. I like to disturb the owner's personal belongings as little as possible. So now we can get the nuts off the top of our strut over here. And we found a little door. Let's go exploring. There's one on the other side as well. So it just pops off of here. Gives us a little more access to the top of those struts. But I still think you have to take the styrofoam piece out of there because it covers up the tops of those bolts. So I'm not sure what that is, just makes it a little easier to get around that trim panel, I guess. Now we'll pry down on our control arm, squeak our strut out of there, and it turns out this one was broken too. It was only a matter of time before it looked like the other side. You know where this goes. So we have our shiny new strut, direct from China, probably complete with lead paint, but well, I'm wearing gloves, so I'll be fine. Get the studs lined up in the body. Slide it up there. And we don't need our friend to help us with this one. Just slide it into the control arm, and that'll push it up so that it doesn't fall on the ground. And we can go ahead and start our nuts up on the top. Zip them in there. Now we'll put our little newfound door back on. The tabs up on top slide in, and then just clips in on the bottom. We can put our Igloo cooler back in here. Snap our little push pins in there. Put a cover on the side. We can put our rear sill plate on. Tuck it under as much of the weather stripping as we can, and then use our belt molding installation tool to clip it in. And whatever weather stripping is underneath it, we'll just pull it out and get it back up on top where it belongs. Now you can put our spare tire cover in there. You can figure out which way it goes. Thought the sand went at the top, or at the front, I guess. That looks right. Sure we didn't lose any tools in there. Oh, we also forgot this little piece. Now we're done. Now we go back to putting our strut on our control arm. Right down a little bit. Not quite ready for that yet. Tap it up there. And we get our bolt started, and we get it lined up and push it through. Put the nut on there so it doesn't end up falling out while we're working on it. Move our jack underneath it so we can load our suspension. Give it a little tap. Our knuckle falls in there. Get it lined up. Start our bolt. Pull our pry bar out as we work the bolt through. So we get to the end, and we just got to kind of move it around until it slides in there. Tighten up the nuts. And let our jack down. Now we should be ready to throw our tire back down. We'll pull our jack stand out of here just to make it a little more exciting and to really mess with the safety experts. Start our lug nuts and snug them up. Pull our jack stand out of the other side. And we'll let it down and see if we did any good. So far so good. Now we're going to tighten our lug nuts to manufacturer specs with an actual torque wrench. Look at this guy with a torque wrench and gloves. Who is he? Well, there you go. That's all it takes to do the struts on the rear of your Subaru Forester. Pretty easy job with the exception of getting them in and out of there. But if you don't have a friend to put a pry bar in there and hang on that suspension, just pull that bolt out of the bottom of the control arm like I do, and it slides right in there. So thanks for watching. I will see you guys in the next video. I'm gonna take it for a ride and level it out a little bit. We went from having no space in here to having too much, but it should level out when I take it around a block and hit a few bumps. You know, little whoop-de-doo in my Subaru. See you in the next video.